morning, friends. I'm Carlo Feltrinelli, President of the Feltrinelli Foundation, and I would like to welcome you to the third edition of the Feltrinelli Camp. I would like to thank those here present, together with all of you who are connected to us via remote. I wish to thank our speakers as well as all of our participants who have responded to our call for proposal with topics, projects, and submissions, all of which are highly valued. As you know, our Feltrinelli Camp for Transformative Economies had been planned for the last weekend over February 29 and March 1st, and it turned out it was the first of many public events we were obliged to cancel because of the pandemic. We did so with a heavy heart because these 2 days have by now acquired a strategic importance for our foundation. The camp has become an important moment. On one hand, allows us to make an assessment as to the progress of our research, and on the other, helps us to define future paths as guidelines for choosing the issues to be examined by our observatories. As such, we strongly believe in the strong creativity of this moment that brings together theory and practice, researchers and policymakers, academics and operators. Last year's Feltrinelli Camp was called Rethinking Capitalism from Globalization to Humanization. This year we wish to pursue this journey by devoting our initiative to focusing on those economic models that, especially given the crisis we are experiencing now, allow us to promote ecological transition for everyone, economically, socially, without forgetting community well-being and environmental justice. The roles played by both state and public administration are here of fundamental importance. As you already know, the topics under discussion are the same as those proposed for last February, but they have acquired a new urgency. The great imperative is now the need to review our economic models in order to combine environmental justice with social justice, a review of our paradigm for development that must be applied as an inspirational guideline for all projects and policies in this period of post-crisis reconstruction. Since the beginning, our foundation has believed that research can provide interpretive keys, proposal, and policy indications for decision makers in the public sector. Through the Feltrinelli Camp, we wish to provide our own contribution, preparing for these 2 days not only by looking at all opportunities for discussion that these focus groups can provide, but also in trusting that each one of you wants to participate in a dynamic of change that we have always encouraged. Today, we have the opportunity of influencing political pathway with proposal for possible escape routes from the crisis. The word transformative contained in the title of this present edition gains more significance if we consider each theoretical and practical contribution as a precious addition to delineate courses of action together. I hope you will enjoy your stay here and you will enjoy these 2 days. Buon lavoro.
Thank you, Mr. Feltrinelli, for your contribution. It reminded us the importance of being here today. I couldn't agree more with your words. The emergency state in sanitary, economic, environmental, and social sector is not behind us, and business as usual is not an option for the future. This is why we urgently need to transform this awareness into action, speeding and scaling up into the transition. So welcome again to the Feltrinelli Camp 2020 and to what I hope it will be an amazing journey for the next 2 days. We have a lot ahead of us, so without any further ado, I would like to call to the stage Enrica Chiappero, which is from Scientific Committee of Fondazione Giangiacomo Feltrinelli and full professor of political economy at University of Pavia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very much glad to join to our president, Carlo Feltrinelli, and welcome you all, those who are in this conference room, as well as those who are in the video call. On behalf of the entire scientific committee of the Feltrinelli Foundation, welcome to this third edition of the Feltrinelli Camp. As our president pointed out, the postponement of this initiative from February to nowadays, it has been a sad and unfortunate event. But this rescheduling can offer us the possibility to reflect on transformative economies from a broader and new perspective. The public health crisis due to COVID-19 has worsened an economic downturn from which all Europe and surely our country never fully recovered, compounding the climate and environmental crises that were already threatening our societies. It has also shed light on the importance to rebuild our economic system and on the necessity to reconsider our development models. It reminds us on the urgency of the environmental, social, and economic threats we are all facing with. It requires us to acknowledge that we are all potentially vulnerable to the exposure of risk disease. The pandemic has also made us more aware about the necessity to find global answers to global issues and the importance to endorse global public goods, including universal access to basic health care, social protection provision, and control of communicable diseases. It has also enforced our view about the key role that community-led initiatives promoting inner and inclusive growth, solidarity, and mutual help can play, and indeed have played in the last months. The experience of COVID-19, with its tragic consequences in terms of human lives and socioeconomic impact, may offer us new arguments and new evidence for supporting and enforcing the idea that we need to identify actions and strategies that can drive and speed up the transition towards new economic models, new roads for sustainable development, new models of solidarity. International agencies, global actors, European, national, and local institutions play an important role in driving the economic and ecological transformations required and in activating the needed economic resources. However, it is not less relevant the role that local communities and empowered citizens can play by experimenting innovative actions and pioneering initiatives aimed to promote equity and resilience in their community and the green, new, inclusive growth. Interesting experiences and fresh ideas are mushrooming around the world in the most recent years. They include creative community-led actions, social innovation initiatives, grassroots solidarity networks, innovation labs that offer concrete solutions to unresolved social problems, promote economic sustainable activities, and contribute to the construction or reconstruction of socioeconomic fabric by promoting agency and civic participation. I feel privileged to serve the Foundation as a member of the Scientific Committee since many years, and more recently as a scholar involved in the Observatory on Ideas and Practices for a Sustainable Development. So I'm well aware about the importance that topics such as social justice and economic inequalities, circular economy and sustainable development have always been in the core of the research agenda and of many activities promoted by the Foundation. including the Master in Sustainable Development Jobs that will be starting soon with its second edition. The previous two camps have shown to be a wonderful opportunity for exchanging ideas, reflecting on what in our society works and what doesn't. A key element of the success of this initiative is the capacity to mix people of different personal and professional experience, different age, culture, world vision, and offer them a unique opportunity to take a break from our daily life and enjoy the intellectual reflection, the critical thinking, share their own experiences and learn from each other's. So what you are invited to do during these 2 days is to give a voice to your views and ideas on how our societies could be or should be, to envisage new forms of financial and economic organization, innovative, productive, and consumption models, creation of new skills and new jobs that can generate wealth, but also social value. Forms of social and economic innovation aim to promote well-being and socioeconomic progress in a sustainable way, and able to create spaces of opportunity and participation for everyone. So I wish you to enjoy in the best way this exciting experience, and invite you all to give your intellectual and experiential contribution to shape a better and more sustainable society. Thank you for your attention and enjoy this adventure. Thank you.
Thank you, Enrica Chiappero Martinetti from Scientific Committee of Fondazione Feltrinelli. Thank you for shedding light of the importance of the camp and what these 2 days will be. Well, our program will start out in a few moments with our first public lecture about the limits and alternatives of the circular economy approach. Then our participants will be split into 8 working groups. The workshops are divided according to 4 discussion macro topics: economical and financial instruments, education and jobs, cities and territories, resources. We will then come back in the afternoon when a second public lecture will take place, and the topic will be the circular economy, from the circular economy to the Green New Deal, what we have learned. Our first day of Congress will end with a second session of the working groups. But before moving to our last guest for this introduction section, I would like to invite all the participants of the groups to come to the stage for a photo. Please take your mask on, of course, so that we can have a moment together, and you will remember this day in the future. Everybody is ready. Masks are on. Thank you very much. As I was saying before, we have another guest for our introduction today, and I would like to ask Antonio Funiciello to join and connect it to us. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Funiciello is responsible for JAUL, any business school, which trains and supports the managers and the entrepreneurs of the future by promoting a management culture based on the values of integration and sustainable growth, principles which are perfectly in line with the main topic of our event today. Welcome, Mr. Funiciello. Would you like to go ahead and take the floor?
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here with you this morning. A warm greetings to Carlo Feltrinelli and all the friends who are here, and also to my dear friend Massimiliano Tarantino, who is surely somewhere out there. The partnership between Feltrinelli and ENI on the issue such as climate change, decarbonization, and circular economy is crucial for us to face two fundamental challenges. The most important challenge is to save our planet and to ensure and guarantee access to energy resources for everyone. But this process is also important, is fundamental for the transformation of our corporate, for our business model, for our organization. JAUL, or JUL, as you say in English, is a new initiative of ENI, and I'm the head of JAUL. JAUL is the School of Entrepreneurship of the company. Our goal is to sustain all the Italian circular economy startups, as well as the Italian small and medium-sized enterprises. We consider the 17 Sustainable Development Goals our constellation to follow and guide us in our daily actions. In these current years, in the times that we live, the key word is not change. The key word is transform. The most important verb is not to change, but is to transform. These two verbs differ greatly from one another. As James McGregor Barnes well explained to us in his writings on leadership, we must distinguish between these two verbs. To change is to substitute one thing for another, to give and take, to exchange places, to pass from one place to another. But to transform something cuts much more profoundly. It is to cause a metamorphosis in form or structure, a change in the very condition or nature of a thing, a change into another substance, a radical change in outward form or inner character, as when a frog, Barnes wrote, as when a frog is transformed into a prince. So, to win our challenges, we cannot change or substitute our planet for another. We must transform our way of living on this planet and transform all the frogs around the world into princesses and princes. So, thank you very much. Good job, everyone. Buon lavoro a tutti.
Thank you, Mr. Funiciello. Lovely to have you with us. So, not change, but transform. And we're going to see in a few moments what is really a circular economy and what is the new sense of this term. So, for our first public lecture, I'm delighted to welcome our guests. They will be, as we were saying, the first to be addressed to highlight the pros and cons, limits and alternatives of the circular economy approach. Our speakers today are Mr. Claudio Zara, Professor of Finance of Green Business and the Circular Economy at Bocconi University here in Milan, which... Hi, please take the stage. And I like to join, is connected via remote, Eugenio Caverzasi from University of Insubria. Hello? Please take a seat. Can you hear us? We cannot hear you.
Yes, I can, sorry. I didn't switch on the
Okay,
microphone.
okay.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Caverzasi is an economist from University of Insubria and has just won the CAP Prize for political evolutionary political economy. Is it right?
That's correct.
Okay, okay. So I give the floor to Professor Zara first. Please, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to attend this camp and also to open this camp with you. And basically, the focus of my speech is, of course, it starts from the title of this lecture, Resources, Climate Change, Limits and Alternatives of the Circular Economy Approach. And I thought to develop my speech in 6 main points. Of course, consider that my particular angle, my particular point of view is the point of view of finance. So I mean financial investors, financial markets. So it's a particular angle, but at the same time, I will explain you why is an important angle, even if it's not core in when we refer to the concept of circular economy. So the 6 points are, what is circular economy? I don't want to explain you what is circular economy unless you ask me, but I want to stress the key features which are important for finance. The second point is about the difference between CSR and circular economy. I anticipate that circular economy is not CSR, and I'll explain you why. The third point is about the impact of the circular economy on the economic profile of companies. That is relevant for finance because if you change the asset side, I mean the investments, the cash generation, you need also to change the liability side, I mean the capital structure, the sources of finance in order to support investments and operations. The fourth point is about the role of finance. The fifth is the mainstream of the evolution in finance. And the sixth refers to greetings for your agenda and your forthcoming activities. So let me pass us to what is circular economy. First point. In the financial environment, it's not clear what is circular economy. There is a lot of confusion, and so we can overlap the concept of circular economy with a concept of general sustainability or something related to climate change, green finance, green economy. Also, in my opinion, in the European Commission, perhaps for communication purposes, there was a little bit misleading and mischanging between the original concept of circular economy and what they call now Green New Deal, but I don't want to open a window on this point. So a lot of confusion. What is important is that there is a common stream of understanding that the circular economy is something very complex. For example, it's not only environment. It's not only a problem of climate change. Generally speaking, we have 3 main areas of consideration for circular economy, which are the first, resources, as you wrote in the title of the lecture. So this refers to the concept of limits to grow, limits given by finite resources. So we can start from Club of Rome, Meadow, the MIT group, so the beginning of the 70s of the last century. The second is certainly environment, we can say. We normally refer to externalities, negative externalities, because it's perhaps a broader concept which refers not only, for example, to climate change, but also to a general fair management of the natural capital. Let me consider, for example, land, water, okay? So, and you can refer also to the different goals of the 2030 agenda. And the third point, that perhaps the less known, is about the utility. I mean, the usage of the resources inside the economy. Improve the utility, improve the usage. That is a concept of efficiency and, for example, also a concept of resilience. That is very important for one of your working groups when you work on different business models, resilience. So having different business model is a key concept in circular economy. If you want to dig deeper on this kind of definition, you can refer, for example, to the definition provided by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and you have a good reference in order to develop this concept. From my point of view, the point of view of finance, there are three basically main points, which are the first, circular economy affects risk. We have many linear risks, we call, for example, risks related to climate change, but not only risks related to climate change. Again, lack of resources, volatility of prices, problems in procurement, and going on, changes in the regulation, the legislation, and going on, that affects, of course, the risk profile of the companies, and so the consideration also from the financial investor point of view. In this way, circular economy is a very strong de-risker. So you can reduce the risk of the assets. This is crucial, this is a key point. For example, this is a point of attraction for banks, because as you know, banks normally have a low risk profile, and they must have a low risk profile because they take our savings, and we don't want that they waste our savings, for example, in making hazardous investments or speculative investments. So they must have a very low risk profile, and the fact that you have a de-risker, it's important in order to reduce the level of risk of the assets and, generally speaking, of the economy. This is a very important point also for regulators. In fact, if we refer, for example, to the European environment, EBA, EIB, and going on, they are interested in introducing this kind of considerations in the activity of financial actors, because in this way they can better pursue the goal of stabilize the banking system. Okay, so risk, the risker. The second point is about innovation. Circular economy means innovation. You need to innovate in order to transform. Before we said we transform, that's correct, but pay attention. For transforming, you need to innovate. And again, it's not only a matter of technological innovation. Certainly, technology is a key driver of the transformation in a circular sense. Let me consider car sharing. Without digitalization, without connection, you don't have sharing. The idea to share cars is not a new idea, but the point was that they didn't have the technologies to share effectively cars. Now we can do it, and in the future we will do better. Okay, let me consider again about energy, about resources. It's clear that decarbonization is a main goal, a mainstream of our economies, but after you need the technology for doing it. But it's not only a matter of technology, it's technology in combination with management, business models. Again, let me consider the case of car sharing. In car sharing, basically, you change your revenue model because starting from the beginning of the car industry, when you sell a car, you generate an upfront revenue. Okay, you sell the car, you take the price. Okay, you have the maintenance, you can have the spare parts, so you have a continuous stream of revenues, but the bulk of the revenues is upstream. Upfront, sorry, not upstream. Now we change the revenue model because you don't manufacture the car for selling it, but you manufacture the car for selling a service. And so it means that you generate a revenue that is continuous. But this has also some impacts, for example, on the cost structure, because you cannot cover all the costs that you inferred for manufacturing the car at the beginning, but you need a certain amount of time, let me consider 2 years, 3 years, in order to reach the break-even point, and after that to start to generate a positive margin and a positive cash. So the business models change, the revenue models change. So innovation is a combination between technology and management. And the third point of consideration is about a change in the paradigm. Circular economy is not a mitigation of the negative effects of the linear economy. It's not trying to recycle something. Okay, I generate a waste. I have been generating for tens and tens of years. I go on to generate waste, but I try to recover them. That's not circular economy. That is CSR. But it's not circular economy. Circular economy means that you change completely your business model, your production model, in order to avoid the generation of waste or to reduce as possible. Okay? I hope it's clear. The difference is not a mitigation, but is a change in the paradigm. And that is very relevant also from the financial point of view, because it means that you are in front of a real change in the asset side, and again, you need to change also the liability side, so the way you finance the companies. About CSR, I want only to stress again the point of the difference, considering the overshooting day. If you consider the statistics about the overshooting day, I have there here. Basically, starting from the beginning of the last decade, we have a constant overshooting day. But there is an increment considering the global overshooting day, 1 day, 2 days. This year it was the opposite, but we know why it was the opposite. And that is a clear proof that CSR doesn't work, because it's not able to downturn the trend, to change the slope from positive to negative. At the best, you are able to generate a flat curve, but you don't change the slope of the curve. And so this is crucial. Let me tell you something about the impact of the economics. And I go back to what I said before about sharing, car sharing. Before I said, pay attention, I changed the revenue model from an upfront revenue to a continuous revenue. So it means, it implies that you need more finance to finance the revenue generation. Why? Because you don't have 100% of the revenue at the beginning, but you generate revenue during the time. And so you need to fill the gap between the costs that you infer immediately, because you need to manufacture the car. You cannot say, okay, I manufacture part of the car this year and I go on the next year. No, you need to manufacture now. So you suffer the cost now, but you can cover the cost with revenue, considering a continuous stream of revenue. Of course, I open a bracket. The win challenge is that at the end, the net present value of the revenues that you can generate with a sharing model is higher than the revenues that you generate for the traditional with the traditional model. I mean, selling the ownership of the car and not the usage. Okay, I close the bracket. So if you consider the combination between costs and revenues, you have a financial gap, at least for the first year, perhaps also for the second year. And so it means that at the beginning, you generate a negative cash flow. So you need outside finance in order to cover the negative financial balance that you infer that you need to manage when you change your business model. Okay, so we can refer to this kind of transformation of the economics which affect also the role of finance. Let me tell you this. What I have just said is a negative impact, because it's better to receive the money at the beginning instead receiving later. Let me consider also the generation of new sources of volatility. For example, the creditworthiness of customers. You could infer in problem of creditworthiness of your customers. So this is a case of negative impact. The positive impact can be, for example, related to the operating cost structure. If you are able to decouple your activity from virgin raw materials to second-hand materials that you can control better in terms of sources of procurement as well as price management, you can have a stabilization of your cost structure, so you reduce the risk in the terms of your cost structure, and so you have a positive effect. So what I want to say is that in this impact on the economics, you have a combination between positive effects and negative effects. What we believe is that the net balance at the end is positive. I mean, the strengths are more than the traits, okay, the weaknesses. Sorry, not the traits, the weaknesses. Okay, so that is the challenge, that is the promise that we believe. But what I want to tell you is that it's not always the bright side of the moon. There is a bright side, but also a dark side. And so in this way, I refer to limits and alternatives. It's not always a win-win story, but there can be also some problems in the road of the transformation. So let me pass now to the role of finance. Okay, for finance, this topic is crucial. Why? Because companies, customers are the financial actors' customers. So if my customers change, that matters for me. Okay, so that is the starting point. But I think I want also to, in a certain way, challenge you, because after you have the working groups. The typical orientation, the typical position is that what finance can do for circular economy. I think this is a mistake. We must turn around the perspective. What circular economy can do for finance? Why? Because in finance, actors are certainly, I use this way, even if it's quite a limit, profit-oriented. I mean, as a financial actor, let me consider that I am a manager of a bank or an asset manager. At the end of the day, my performance is based on the results that I generate. As an asset manager, if I generate a positive return, that is good. If I generate a negative return, that is bad. And so I risk to lose my job. Or anyway, I don't receive my incentives, whatever you want. And the same for managers in banks, other lenders, whatever you want. Let me consider the case of private equity. In private equity, it's the same. The goal is to generate a positive IRR, okay? Not to help companies to grow. The growth of the company is the way to generate a positive IRR. So, generally speaking, in finance, we are in front of tough people. I don't believe, I say this, I don't believe when financial actors say, I want to invest in sustainable assets to help the planet. I don't believe in this way, pay attention. I don't want to say that financial actors are without responsibility. But the point is that, for me, it's better to have responsibility because I create the long-term condition to go on to run my activity. I mean, if I go on to invest in carbon industry, the risk is that the legislation, the regulator, at a certain point say, no carbon, and so I have only stranded assets, and I lose money. So for me, it's important to change from carbon to renewables, because that is a way to regenerate my portfolio of assets and create the condition to go on successfully in the future. So I hope to be enough clear. Okay, in this way, I don't believe.
You are very clear, and I must ask you to go to the conclusion in a few minutes so that I can take the floor. Then we can come back with other issues. Thank you.
Absolutely, you are right. So that is the crucial point. You must show an opportunity to the financial services industry in order to attract money, capital, for the asset side, for the real economy. There are three strands of opportunities. I don't enter in details because we don't have time, but they are related to risk. I said before, de-risking. Revenues. There are both revenue generation and better risk-return combination. And the third is related to reputation. The possibility for the financial system to recover a role in the economy, to sustain a fair development of the real economy. That is even more important in consideration to the financial crisis of the last decade, as well as to the fact that many financial actors must rely on trust of the companies, or trust of the customers, so they need to recover trust. And so let's go straight to the conclusions. Let me consider the mainstream of the evolution in finance. Let me consider the situation in the forthcoming 10 or 15 years. I don't believe that in the next 10, 15 years, we still go on to talk about, for example, green bonds, or sustainable responsible investment principles, equator risk principles in project finance, and so on. Why? Because if you completely transform your asset side, so if there is a complete change in the companies, in the behavior of the consumers, you don't need to put a label to the word finance, green finance, circular finance, sustainable finance. At that point, finance is finance and is sustainable because the asset side is sustainable. So that is a very important point. And my second point of conclusion is, as I said before, my greetings for your agenda, for your activity of these 2 days, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Zara. So finance is in the middle of a big transformation.
As the real economy, also the financial economy is transforming. Absolutely agree.
Very interesting. Thank you very much. And now, Mr. Caverzasi, would you like to go ahead? We cannot, maybe the microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Now it's okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good morning, everyone. So first of all, let me thank the organizer and the Fondazione Giangiacomo Feltrinelli for having me here. It's a pity not to be there in person, but I'm sure we can still have a good discussion online. And thank you also to Professor Zara, because he gave a very interesting lecture, and I have many points in common with what he said, and so I hope that my lecture would be of the same interest. So I have prepared a small presentation for my talk. Okay, now you can see it. I will focus on a specific subject, as Professor Zara said. In 10, 15 years, we may not be talking anymore about green bonds, but we are doing it now. So I wanted just to focus on this instrument, because I've been reading on the newspaper different stuff, and I wanted to put some order in this about this financial asset. We can start with the presentation. So as I was saying, in the news, we can read different things about this financial asset. A rather recent news is the one you can see on the top left of the screen. So the idea, the fact that the recovery funds will be financed in a big part, 30%, by the emission of green bonds. This is linked to general enthusiasm, which is that can be found in the financial market about this instrument. So you can see the Financial Times talking about the rise of this instrument, and this is coupled for sure with enthusiastic vision from some observer about the possible impact, the real impact of this instrument on the on a green transition. On the other hand, please next slide. On the other hand, we have also negative views. There are dark side of green, and some observer noticed or considered these bonds to be completely useless or pointless for the environment. So we try, with this presentation, I'll try to set the point straight and to understand what we are talking about, and to give my perspective. For sure, there is a personal point of view here. Next. So, just a brief introduction. I think that not all of you are very familiar with this instrument, so I thought it is the case to give you some information. So, what are green bonds? These are actually rather standard bonds. These are rather standard kind of assets. So you lend through the system, and you buy this instrument, and by buying this asset, you lend money to an investor who needs money for his business, and you will receive back in the future your money plus a small interest rate. So it's a pretty standard security. What is the peculiarity? The special character of this instrument come from the fact that they have a use of proceeds clause. What does it mean? It means that the money collected ought to be invested in something green, in something which is environmentally friendly. It means mainly renewable energy. Solar panel, wind energy, and so on and so forth, but also energy efficiency, low carbon transport, sustainable water, and waste and pollution. So these are in order. The most important are linked to the biggest chunk is linked to renewable energy, and then decreasing with this list. A bit of history, not just for anecdotal purposes, but also because it will be interesting for our analysis, I guess. When were they invented? They were invented between 2006 and 2008. The first were issued in cooperation by World Bank and Swedish bank, SEB. What was the point there? The idea was that until that point, green-friendly finance or sustainable finance was green sustainable finance was focusing on a negative perspective. So the idea was not to give money to those investing in highly polluting businesses. There was a change of paradigm. So the idea was that we should not just have a negative perspective. So we should not just not to give money to those polluting. We should help with our money those who are helping a transition to a more green economy. The idea here was to put together two set of needs. On the one hand, the need for money for those doing green businesses. On the other hand, there was the idea of a need. There was a demand from the financial sector, from the financial wealth owner, to invest in something which was deemed to be environmentally friendly. So there was a demand from wealthy people there was in Scandinavian country who wanted to use their money in a environmentally friendly way. Next. This model, this kind of bond had, after a period of installation, which is normally with any innovation, also innovation in the financial sector, they started increasing very fastly from the beginning of the 2010, and they're now increasing rather rapidly. The light blue line there, it was just a projection, so should not be taken, does not take into account what happened with the corona crisis. So we can see that they increase dramatically, and they are expected to increase even faster. Who are the main issuers? So the main issuer, we can see it on the right, on the graph on the right side of the screen. The main issuer are corporations. So we have supranational institution, so as the World Bank, as I said before, government bonds, but the biggest chunk is now issued by corporation. Next. Getting a bit more into the details, geographical details. So we have the center and the right graph, which give us the geographical details. So we have the United States as main issuer, China as second one, but as an economic area, Europe, the European area is has the lion's share. So it's the one issuing the most green bond. What I wanted you to see in the left graph, it's a peculiarity, which is the presence there of asset-backed securities. So a lot of these assets are now asset-backed securities. This is a particular kind of asset. It's long-term liquid financial assets and transformed in liquid assets. How is that done? So a bank issue, for example, loans, usually a mortgage, and instead of keeping it in its balance sheet, they sell it out to the financial market and they transform it in a financial assets. What happened there is that the bank has an upfront income, and the revenue, so which are the interest that the debtor is paying, are now passed to the owner of the assets. Okay, so when I pay the interest for my mortgage, my money, I'm going to the issuer of the assets. We will get back to this in a second. Next, with respect to my introduction, there are 2 points which I think that are important. First, definition, and second, bilateral convenience. And I will go through this with my presentation next. So, green bonds needs to be, what are green bonds? So they need, as we say, the money needs to be applied to economically project. So how is that defined? Who says if this is correct, if this is done correctly? So there are different ways to do it. There are certification, which are maybe internal. So just the issuer say, okay, what I'm doing is a ecologically friendly investment, so give me money through a green bond. Or there are now these kind of assets are getting institutionalized, so there are private certification, but also public certificates, the soon to come EU green bonds. So the European Commission is setting the standards for proper green bond. The idea of applying to any of these certification is completely voluntary. So there is all the issuer can decide whether to apply to this to use this certification or not. Then there are other kind of national or local regulation, as the one implemented in China and India, which have several issues. Will not go through that. So the strongest point of what the EC, the European Commission, is doing is that they not only have a taxonomy of what is a green investment or not, but they have also some specification, which, as you will see in a second, are very important. So they not only list what is a green investment, but they also say why during this transition, or why we'll invest in this green investment, we should not harm the other objective. And we will see that this is rather important. Please, next slide. So just to to set the record straight, just to avoid some confusion, in 2015, Cicero made a nice taxonomy once again of what is a green investment, and so he identified three shades of green. So we have dark green, which are long-term vision. So this is probably what is most in line with circular economy. The idea here is that we need a long-term vision which will change our economic system and will make it more economical, ecologically friendly. The typical example here is wind energy. Then there are medium green investment, which are those which are steps toward. They don't imply a change of paradigm, but they are a step forward, like plug-in buses, so public transport, which become less impacting on the environment. Then there are light green investment, which represent no step forward toward a long-term solution, but they are somehow within certain limit environmentally friendly, like efficiency in fuel. So we have to know that green bonds may be any one of these legit green bonds, maybe any one of these shades. And brown projects, which are economic environmentally at all. With respect to this, next slide, please. With respect to this taxonomy, we can see what happened in the green bond market. So the lack of a neat definition led to several problems. First was not only the lack of a straight definition, but also lack of a system control led to several problems. The first one were fraud. So there were between 15 and 30%, according to certain analysis, of all green bonds issued, which were not ecologically friendly at all. So we're talking about a pure fraud. Then there are very deep errors, perfect. Doesn't that mean? There is a famous case study here, which is a dam built in Brazil, which was actually ecologically friendly in a sense, because it was helping to have a green source of energy, so which is hydroelectric. But to build the dam, a big chunk of forest was destroyed, and so the ecosystem was harmed. So the overall effect was considered negative. Nonetheless, this was one of the biggest issuance of the biggest project funded by green bonds. So they were used for something which was environmentally negative. The second aspect is what is called greenwashing. So what is greenwashing? Is the idea that a company may issue green bonds just to have a return of image. So it may be its business may be very impactful and very negative for the environment, but not to have too many pressure, not to or just to clean its image for the market. They just issue some green bond. They may be legit or not, but the idea is that the overall business is unchanged, and actually green bonds are just a way, like a shield, to keep on doing business as usual and to pollute the economy as they had been doing just before that. Next slide, please. So the idea here is that, as we said, green bonds are a financial asset, as Professor Zara had to say. There is a question what green bonds can do for the market, and this is something which, in my view, has already been at the center of this instrument. So they perform as an instrument. 90% of them are investment grade instruments, so they're considered very safe. They can be used in the repo market. In any case, they can be used by institutional investors, let's say so. They have their return is slightly lower than traditional bonds on average, but they're deemed to be safer. They prove to be safer in face of crisis. There is some negative effect over the stock market value of the company, but these are debatable and they're minor. So what are the incentives for the investor and for the issuer? So the main incentive for sure is to enhance the green profile of the investor. So, as I said, a firm, a company want to be considered more environmentally friendly. I was talking about the investors. So those buying the bonds, the financial companies, so whoever, the wealth owner who buy the bonds want to be perceived as environmentally friendly. Second one, there is also a second set of demand. There is a second reason to invest in this asset. So there are investment grade assets. So they're considered safe, and there is a big demand in the market out there in the financial market for investment grade asset. And this is even more after the QE. So there is a big demand also for this. What is the incentive for the issuer? For sure, on the one hand, enhance the green profile, and also to issue these to finance their investment at a slightly lower cost. Let's move to the next slide, please. There should be another slide before. Sorry. Okay, thank you. What has been emerging from the literature, which is rather recent, so there is still some controversy. There is not a univocal perspective, but what has been emerging is that these green bonds do not appear to be unlocking new resources of capital for green investment. That is to say, those kind of investment, those green investment, in the best case of dark green bonds, those kind of investment would have been implemented, would have been done even without green bond, even if the green bond market was not there, even if this kind of asset were not being financed at all. The Bank of International Settlement issued a working paper recently who said that there is no correlation between the overall carbon emission of the issuer of this bond and the issuance of this kind of financial asset. So overall, the impact for the issuer is seem not to be there. Then there are the different problem of integrity, so there can be fraud and greenwashing. So the main point here is that the main point here is the correspondent incentive in enhancing the green profile of both the issuer and the investors. The impact on the environment, the impact of the project itself, the impact on the environment itself is secondary in this market. Some limitation and some risk. If we want to have a proper technological green transition, which is a huge goal for our economy and necessary and huge goal for our economy, we cannot think that finance can be a solution. Finance can be helpful, can provide with some tool, but we should not really focus on that to find a solution. There are different reasons why finance may not be the right answer to have huge investment, which will lead us to a sustainable, environmentally sustainable economic system. And finance has some characteristics which do not match well with the needs of this kind of investment. So there is a financial market short-termism. So we know that financial market want money back and they want it now. They want return and they want it now. They, as Professor Zara said, not the environmental perspective is it's not the main goal of finance. if it is a goal at all. Then financial market presents a huge cycle. We know that very well, and this may be very harming and very problematic for green investment. As Professor said before, the return may require some times, and green market do not have the patience, nor maybe they are the ability, because there might be a downturn in the financial market.
Mr. Caverzasi, sorry, can I ask you to go to the conclusion? Because Professor Zara wants to reply to something you've just said.
Sure. Yeah, okay. And then there are two more things. Sorry, perverse effect. If there was a financial boom, we know the financial booms, in the case of securitization of other assets, as mortgages for the houses, led to major problems. So we said they are mainly financial assets. They're still mainly financial assets, and their main goal is to satisfy demand from the financial markets, and demand which is there to increase the image of the investor. So my final point here, I guess, would be that if we want to have a proper technological transition, we want to deeply change our economic system, the only actor, the actor that we need to focus on is the state, and the state and the supranational public institution. So there may be needed for decrease the volatility of this bond, but this, I think, is marginal. What we need is that we need the state to have both patient finance and industrial policy, which in my view are the only thing that can really lead us toward a sustainable economic system. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Caverzasi. Professor Zara, you want to add something?
Yes, thanks. First of all, thanks to Professor Caverzasi for his very, very complete presentation. I want only to comment your last slide about some issues in order to reinforce some of your messages. The problem of green bonds and the fact that there is a problem for green bonds is given by the amount of bonds in the market. Even if there was a tremendous growth in this kind of asset class, but we still have to take in mind that we are talking about a few points percentage of the overall market of the bonds, both sovereign and corporate bonds. So we are talking about a very limited segment of the market. And why is still limited? Basically, the problem is in the mechanism of recognizing a bond as green. So the matter of proceeds, because when you issue a green bond, that implies a very heavy work of reporting, monitoring, reporting, and accountability, because you need to report and monitor on a single project basis. So it's very hard, it's very tough for companies, it's very cost expensive, it's very time consuming. So for companies to issue a green bond is not an easy job, okay? So when you decide to issue this kind of asset, you must be conscious also of the costs and the resources investment that you incur. Of course, this mechanism is useful to manage greenwashing phenomenon, because if you report on a single project basis, of course, you have a strong monitoring. But at the same time, this becomes a limit to the spreading, to the diffusion of this kind of asset. So we must keep in mind this, and if we want to leverage and to accelerate the diffusion of this kind of assets, I mean sustainable-based assets inside the financial markets, perhaps we need to search a different way. And an example is given by Enel. Enel was one of the first companies in Italy who started to issue green bonds. When they realized the problems related to green bonds, not issuance, but management, they decided to change the pattern. And last year, they had a couple of very successful issuances, both in the US and the European market, considering a plain bond SDGs linked. So a plain bond is a normal bond, it's not green. But in the information package, they clearly fixed their goals related to the proceeds linking to specific SDGs, and they report regularly, not on a project basis, but considering the overall invested capital on the company, on the ability to go toward those goals. A last point, and after I stop, another point that is very important is that if you issue a green bond, you don't have a market premium, at least in the secondary market. You can have a market premium in the primary market. Why? Because at the moment, the demand is more than the offer. And so there is a lack of assets, and so you have a positive effect when you issue the bond. So you can sell the bond to a higher price, and this can compensate, at least in part, the superior cost that you incur during the life of the bond. But the point is that if you observe prices in the secondary market, even if you have a price spread in the primary market, very quickly I mean in a few weeks, the prices of the green bond align with the prices of the plain bond of the same issuer, because at the moment the market prices the risk of the issuer, not the risk of the issue. So if you issue a green bond, you don't have an advantage in terms of risk appreciation in the secondary market, because the bulk is the risk of the issuer. And you change your risk profile as an issuer if you change your invested capital. And so I go back to what I said before.
I see your points. Very clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor Caverzasi, 1 minute answer to what Professor Zara has just said.
No, I'm in line with, I agree with what he's saying. SDG linked bonds may be more interesting for our goal. It's true. The point, the last point he was making is that the fact that green bond is issued and the let's say the issuer grant the bond with his own all capital, not just with investment. So that's that is why what happened in the secondary market. My point here is, once again, though, okay, this financial instrument may be interesting. SDG linked bonds may be a very nice idea. Nonetheless, we cannot think about financial market as a solution. As Professor Zara said, the demand there is always what can be done for the markets. The benefits at the end of the day needs to go to the market, to the investor, etc. It's very tough to think that we can. Would be, I would say, foolish to think that we can face the huge problem that we have to face relying on the financial market. This would be an illusion, and it's best for all of us that we leave it behind as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was really inspiring and helped us to have a more clear vision of the direction our economy and finance should move towards. So please, can you go to your seat, and I say hello and goodbye to Mr. Caverzasi, because we are entering our first workshop session, which is starting in a very few moments. Again, our guests also launched some very interesting challenges and themes for the next session, the 8th workshop. In this first round, the workshop participants are going to know each other and outline the main issues for each topic. The 4 topics, again, are finance, jobs and education, cities and territories, resources. I'll take the chance also to remind you that the working groups, due to social distance rules, are located in different places here in the building. So some workshops are here in the back of the room. Some are, one is at the fourth and another one is at the fifth floor. Please follow the indication and feel free to ask anybody from the foundation for further information. For the participants who are connected via remote, please check your email and go to the web link you should have received. We need just 5 minutes to allow everybody to join his table and to open the webinar. So you can go and join the table. Just for the one who are at home, be patient for a while, and then you have 2 plain hours for these sessions. For the rest of the audience who doesn't participate to the webinars, if you want to stay with us, you are welcome. You can follow the webinars from Fondazione website, fondazionefeltrinelli.it, in the section dedicated to the Feltrinelli Camp. Last but not least, in the kit you received at the entrance this morning, you can find some discounts for your lunch today in some bars and restaurants nearby. I will see you there again in the afternoon at 2:30 p.m. for our second public lecture, From Circular Economy to the Green New Deal, what we have learned. But now, do your best, and I hope you good work. Thank you.